Hello friends, so today's video is going to be a list of some cozy, fun, and happy fantasy stories. I have done a video like this quite a few months back, so if you're looking for more recommendations after this video, I'll have that one linked in the description bar down below. Before jumping into it, a big thank you to Book of the Month for working with me on today's video. A lot of you know how Book of the Month works. Every month you have 5 to 7 different books that you can choose from, all from a variety of different genres, and then occasionally also they have young adult books mixed in with the adult fiction. As somebody who reads a lot of fantasy and I try to keep up with new releases, a lot of times my anticipated releases end up being Book of the Month picks. Sometimes there's fantasy books that I have not really heard all that much about that end up being books that you can choose from, so that's always nice. On top of that, because I read so much fantasy, I can be a little out of the loop when it comes to other genres, and so this helps me branch out from time to time. If there's one given month where you aren't really interested in any of the picks, you can skip that month. You can also use credits that you accumulate on previous books that they've had as selections from other months, and then sometimes they just have new add-ons that you can choose from as well. For this month's picks, we have a contemporary fiction called We Are the Light. In this moving tale of hope and redemption, an unlikely film production brings together a small town racked with grief. After that, we have a magical realism story called The Wilder Women. One sister can see the future, the other people's memories. Together, can they unravel their mother's disappearance? After that, we have a thriller called The Last Party. Nobody likes the reflection in Mirror Lake when a dead body bobs to the surface and starts unveiling all their secrets. Then we have a horror story called White Horse. This no-nonsense, heavy metal-obsessed indigenous woman is determined to confront family ghosts even if it kills her. Last, we have a literary fiction called Someday Maybe. Prep the tissues. This emotional, devastatingly frank account of grief's many faces will have you in your feelings. A big thank you again to Book of the Month for working with me. Now on to today's video. I'll have timestamps for all the various different books that I talk about, as well as purchase links in case you want to check them out after I'm done talking about them. But I'm going to start with a series I only recently picked up, and it is the perfect one that fits in every single one of these categories. Some of these are a little more fun, some of these are a little more happy, some of them are a little more cozy. This one fits in all of them, and that would be Hat Atelier. This is a manga series that follows a young girl named Coco, and Coco lives in a world where magic exists. However, she does not have the ability to use magic. She's always been so in awe of it. She's always been so curious about it. She wants to learn everything she can about it. And one day, somebody who does know how to use magic happens to come to the area she lives in. And then in watching how this person uses magic, she learns some things about it. And you as the reader then learn some things about it. And maybe magic isn't so outside of Coco's reach. And so from there, you kind of see her pursuing this passion of hers, but it also comes at a cost. There's something that occurs in her life that gives her this opportunity, so it's kind of really exciting, but also really sad at the same time. But regardless, Coco is just so sweet, and she is so lovely. She has that childlike wonder that makes you absolutely adore her, and you just don't want anything bad to happen to her. There's some other children as well that she interacts with who are also learning more about magic. The mentor figure trope is definitely present in this if you're a fan of that trope. And then it is a manga series, so there is the artwork to talk about, and this is some of the best art I have ever seen. The art in this is incredible, panel after panel after panel of masterful art. It's great, it's lovely, it's so cute. There are some stakes, there are some things that happen where it makes you wonder, okay, is there something darker and more sinister going on here? But at the end of the day, Coco as our protagonist is just the sweetest. Sticking with witches, if you have watched my recent videos, you probably knew this book was going to be on this list, and it would be The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. This has all of the cozy, happy feels. It is so sweet. We follow this young woman in our world who is a witch, and it is not known that witches exist. They have to keep their identities a secret. And one day, our main character finds out that there are these 3 young orphan girls who have magic, but they do not know how to control their magic. And the people who are currently watching these young girls want to employ our main character to teach the young children how to use their magic. And so she ends up developing a relationship with the caregiver. She's developing a relationship with these young girls. She's kind of discovering more about herself along the way, and it is a romance. So there is an individual that she's finding that she is developing feelings for, and literally every single relationship and every single character is just so sweet and so adorable. But there are some hard-hitting moments. I do think that the way that the author is able to really showcase realistic things that a lot of people go through, things that are difficult to do with your family members, or if you don't have family, that feeling of isolation, of abandonment, feeling like you don't have an anchor, you don't have a place to call home. There's a lot that I think a lot of people can really connect with, but she shows it in a way where it doesn't take away from the sweet moments. It just makes the sweet moments that much more important to the story, and that much more important, I think, to you as the reader, because you crave that, you need that to balance out some of the heavier topics. The next one is a little bit of a tonal shift. This one I wouldn't describe as cozy, but I would describe as fun, and that would be The Art of Prophecy. So this kind of swept me away, and it was very unexpected. I wasn't anticipating it to be so ridiculous, but it really is, and in the best of ways. I will admit that the cheesiness to this story is part of the appeal. However, early on, because it kind of caught me off guard, I almost stopped reading the book because I'm like, this is a little extra cheesy. My cheesy line, it has been crossed a little bit. But then once I accepted it and I was like, okay, I think that is just how it is in this story. I think it is sort of never taking itself all that seriously. Once that dawned on me, then I actually really enjoyed the cheesy factor, and I thought it was so fun. It felt like watching a Jackie Chan movie, but in book form, which was great. The author, I believe, also has worked on films, and I think is a stunt double or has worked on the martial arts aspects of movies. So the way that he's able to bring out those moments, it's done really well, and you can just tell that he has a certain amount of expertise in that area. The story follows a woman named Taisha, who, after witnessing the chosen one, basically, how unprepared they are for the potential of threats that might come, she takes it upon herself to train him. And at first it seems like it's going to be a generic chosen one, mentor-mentee type of story, but what really made this exciting is that at some point, a lot of your expectations fly out the window, and then you really don't know what's going to happen next, so it's sort of edge of your seat. After that, we have A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking. So I have gotten into Tea Kingfisher this year. This is one that I checked out from the library, and I loved it so much. I actually checked out the audiobook because they didn't have a physical copy, and the audiobook narrator was great, so highly recommend if you're a fan of audiobooks. But regardless, this story follows a young girl. She's roughly 14 years of age, and it sounds really dark. It doesn't sound like it's going to be fun or cozy when you hear the beginning, but she works for her aunt and uncle in their bakery, and she comes in one morning to get everything ready to go for the day, and she finds a dead body, and that's how the book starts. And our main character is so silly. You get a lot of her thoughts, and what was really fun and sometimes kind of morbid is that there would be times where something was a little darker. There would be times where something was maybe a hint violent, and she would notice these things and she would be terrified, and then she'd start hyper-focusing on something really specific, and then it made me laugh because I'm like, I feel like that's what a lot of people probably would do. Like, they'd be in shock, but then they'd be thinking about something really insignificant in that moment, and it's almost like your brain has to go that direction because it can't quite process the other thing that's going on over here. It's ultimately not that dark of a book. I recently described it as kind of feeling like Shrek, where it is young adult, so it is, the target demographic is meant to be a younger audience, but I still feel like there's a lot in there that a lot of adults are going to find really funny, really appealing. And the plot, while initially it seems like, oh, is it just a murder mystery? It goes so much more beyond that, to a point where now our main character is caught up in everything going on basically with the protection of the city, and how her magic, which she uses to help her with baking, might actually be the thing to help everybody be saved from an outside threat or maybe an inside threat. You don't really know. Because that one has a hint of murder mystery type of feel, the next one, it's not a murder mystery, but it's more of like a missing person mystery, and that would be Monsters We Defy. So I found that every time I have brought this book up, I have consistently described it as a cozy heist story. So I felt like it had to be on this list. There are definitely heavier things touched on in this. It is adult fantasy. Our main characters are adults. The backstories of some of the characters are really hard-hitting and really sad, but I feel like the cozy factor always kind of makes the book still fun. And these sadder moments, they bring the characters a necessary amount of depth. It makes them feel more real, but I don't think it makes it so that you just have a hard time picking the book up, because every time you have to mentally prepare yourself for anything. So the setup is that we follow this woman who has some magic. It is our world in the early 1900s, and it takes place in the Washington, D.C. area, which is not a setting I typically see in fantasy, so I really enjoyed that aspect of it. Our main character is someone who has some magic. It's not necessarily known to the rest of the world, but you get a certain kind of ability, and with that ability comes a curse. And so our main character is someone who doesn't really want to have to rely on the magic that she does have. The plot really kicks off, though, when Clara, our main character, discovers that somebody in the area she's living in, they went missing, and when they came back, it definitely didn't seem like they were the same whatsoever, and other individuals have been going missing, and so now she is looking into it, and alongside her is a group of other misfits that all kind of band together. It's almost like an Ocean's 11 feel, which is why I describe it as a cozy heist. Next up, I just had to mention this. It's not really cozy, but it is fun, and nothing makes me laugh like Fullmetal. So I had to mention Fullmetal Alchemist. I know I talk about it a lot. It's one of my favorite series of all time. We follow two young brothers who, one lost an arm and a leg and the other lost his entire body, and his soul had to be attached to a suit of armor as a result of them trying to bring their mother back from the dead using alchemy. So you get these two main characters and you think, okay, well, we're just following these two young brothers. But then once the story really gets going, you realize there's so many other characters to dive into, their society, all the dark secrets and corruption. There's just so much to take in, and there's a lot that is actually really powerful and really moving. There's a lot of commentary on cycles of violence and war and trauma, and violence begets violence. That whole sort of idea, Fullmetal does it so well. That said, there's also funny moment after funny moment. It is hilarious. The writer just knows how to draw the characters in a way that is so ridiculous, and it completely takes you off guard. I mean, you're not expecting some of the things that she does, and she's hilarious. There's just so much to it that's super, super funny. Also, the anime Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, also hilarious. It's fantastic. One of the best. It's great. I had to bring it up because really, truly, this makes me laugh more than any other story. After that, we have Blade of Secrets and its sequel, Master of Iron. So the setup for this one is we follow a girl who has the ability to make magical weapons, and one day she has been tasked with making a magical weapon for somebody who has a lot of influence and a lot of power and a lot of control over the military. But after discovering that this person maybe is not what they seem, our character realizes that her weapon that she has created cannot fall into this person's hands. So from there, our character and her sister go on the run with this weapon, and then there are two other individuals that join them. It is just delightful. I have mentioned Trisha Levenseller many times for just having a certain way of writing her stories that is so delightful, that is so fun. And I especially really liked the Warrior of the Wild. That's another one to standalone, and I think that one is also really cozy. There's just something about her stories that have this sense of camaraderie and friendship, and in this story in particular, there is a great sister relationship. And then you also see with our main character, she's somebody who has extreme anxiety, social anxiety. She has a lot of self-doubt, and so the way in which our main character is trying to figure out how to accept this part of herself. And so even though it's a fantasy story and it takes place in a land that doesn't exist and has magical weapons and things that aren't real, I do think a lot of the other aspects of what the main character is going through and how she learns to accept this part of who she is, I don't know, it just makes me really happy. And I think it strangely has a sense of coziness. It's nice for, I think, anybody who has extreme anxiety, or maybe even just a tiny bit of anxiety. I think there is something cozy about seeing that in a story. Last for today, we have The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. This isn't necessarily, I would say, a funny book, or I don't even know if I would describe it necessarily as happy. There's something to it, though, that I do think is very cozy. It feels very fairy tale-like. it feels like you're being swept into this beautiful, lush, vivid world. And for that reason, I had to mention it. The writing itself is really beautiful. And we follow a girl who, at the beginning of the story, right away, her brother's love, this woman that he was in love with, was supposed to be sacrificed to a sea god. And our main character could not let that happen, so she went in that woman's place. And when she does this, the whole reason that anybody is even sacrificed at all is to try and squash the sea god's anger, because it is causing natural disasters that affect them on land. So our main character, once she does this, she discovers this spirit world and how there might be something a little bit more sinister going on that is causing these problems. Maybe it won't be as easy as she was expecting to try and make every bad thing go away, we'll say. But along the way, it just has this adventurous feel. It's not like we're traveling. It's not a traveling story. We're not going to all these different places. But there's just something about it where you feel like you're being brought alongside the character rather than reading about them. And I think a lot of it has to do with the way the author was able to create great imagery and also the feeling of family, even when your family's not there. Just that support and love of your family and of your friends. I just think that that shines really well in this story, and it just is cozy, and it's a standalone, so it's just one book. That's it for some cozy, fun, happy fantasy stories. Like I said at the beginning, I will have the other video I've done like this linked if you'd like some more recommendations. Thanks so much for watching though. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.